The crystalline halls of the Zarathi royal palace hummed with an energy that spoke of desperation. King Vorthak, his pale purple skin drawn tight with worry, stood vigil beside his daughter's biochamber. Princess Kalara lay motionless, her dark curly hair spread across the silver pillow like spilled ink. Her breathing was shallow, mechanical, kept alive by machines that pulsed with alien technology. "The neural pathways are completely severed, Your Majesty," Chief Healer Vex reported, his voice carrying the weight of defeat. "The psychic virus has created barriers we cannot penetrate. Our finest quantum healers, our most advanced neural interfaces, nothing reaches her consciousness." Admiral Thex shifted uncomfortably in the corner, his scarred hands clenched behind his back. He had been the one to suggest the diplomatic mission to the Corvani sector. He had failed to anticipate the weaponized psychic attack that had left the princess in this state. "How long does she have?" the king's voice cracked. "Days, perhaps hours. The virus is consuming her neural tissue. We've done everything within the bounds of Zarathi medicine." Admiral Thex stepped forward. "Your Majesty, there may be another option." The king's silver eyes flashed. "Speak." "The humans. They have a doctor, a trauma specialist named Elias Ward. He's worked with neural injuries that our technology couldn't touch. His methods are unorthodox." "A human?" Chief Healer Vex scoffed. "Their medicine is primitive. They use manual manipulation, emotional triggers, barbaric techniques that have no place in advanced medicine." "But he's saved lives others couldn't," Vex pressed. "He's currently stationed at the frontier medical colony on Kepler 442b. King Vorthak stared at his daughter's still form. Protocol demanded he trust Zarathi superiority. Pride demanded he refuse alien help. But love demanded he try everything. "Bring him." Dr. Elias Ward materialized in the palace's transport bay 6 hours later, his dark hair disheveled from the emergency jump. He carried a worn leather medical bag, an antique by galactic standards, and moved with the confident stride of someone who had pulled miracles from the jaws of death. "Where is she?" he asked without preamble. Admiral Thex led him through corridors that gleamed with impossible architecture. "Doctor, you should know, the royal family has little experience with human customs. The medical staff may be resistant to your methods." Elias paused at the threshold of the medical bay, taking in the array of crystalline equipment and floating diagnostic displays. Princess Kalara lay in the center, beautiful even in her unconscious state, her pale purple skin luminescent under the alien lights. He approached her bedside, ignoring the horrified gasps of the Zarathi medical staff as he placed his human hands directly on her forehead. Her skin was warm, electric, alive in ways their machines couldn't measure. "You're treating a mind like a machine," he muttered, studying her face. "That's your first mistake." The medical bay erupted in chaos as Dr. Elias Ward began disconnecting the neural interface cables from Princess Kalara's temples. Chief Healer Vex lunged forward, his purple skin flushed with indignation. "What are you doing?" "Those quantum stabilizers are maintaining her neural integrity." "They're creating interference," Elias replied calmly, his hands moving with practiced precision. "Your machines are drowning out her natural brainwaves. How do you expect her consciousness to resurface through all this electronic noise?" King Vorthak watched from the doorway, his massive frame tense with uncertainty. "Doctor, if you harm her." "I won't." Elias's voice carried quiet confidence as he pulled out an ancient stethoscope from his leather bag. The Zarathi medical staff stared in horror as he placed the primitive instrument against Kalara's chest. "Her heart rate is irregular, not from the virus, but from your treatments. You're overwhelming her system." Chief Healer Vex's voice rose to a shriek. "This is barbarism. Guards, remove this primitive." "No." The king's command silenced the room. "Give him 1 week." Elias nodded gratefully, then turned back to Kalara. He began what looked like massage to the alien observers, his hands working along her temples, her neck, following neural pathways that no scanner could map. In human medicine, we know that consciousness isn't just electrical impulses. It's memory, emotion, connection. As the hours passed, Elias established a routine that horrified the Zarathi staff. He talked to the unconscious princess, not clinical observations, but personal stories. He brought flowers from the palace gardens, letting their scent fill the sterile air. He played music on a small device, watching her brainwave patterns on the simplified monitors he'd requested. "What are you doing?" King Vorthak asked during one of his visits. "Building bridges," Elias replied, gently stroking Kalara's dark curls. The psychic virus created barriers in her mind. "Your technology can't cross them because it doesn't understand what consciousness actually is. But memory, emotion, sensory experience, these can slip through cracks that logic cannot." On the third day, something changed. As Elias played a piece of human classical music, Bach's Air on the G string, Kalara's fingers twitched. The movement was barely perceptible, but Elias caught it immediately. "There," he whispered, taking her hand in his. "I know you're in there, princess. I know you can hear me." Her vital signs spiked slightly, and for the first time since her collapse, her REM sleep patterns showed signs of natural dreaming. Chief Healer Vec studied the readings with growing amazement. "It's impossible," he murmured. "Her neural activity is increasing, but there's no technological intervention." "That's because consciousness isn't technology," Elias said, never taking his eyes off Kalara's face. "It's something far more complex and beautiful than any machine could ever replicate." As night fell over the palace, Elias maintained his vigil. He told her about Earth, about the patients he'd saved, about his own struggles as a human working in an alien galaxy. And sometimes, just sometimes, he could swear he felt her squeeze his hand in response. On the fifth day, Princess Kalara's lady-in-waiting, Sarah, approached Dr. Elias Ward with trembling hands. Her pale purple skin was marked with the traditional servant's tattoos, and her eyes held desperate hope. "Doctor, I've served the princess since childhood. If personal memories might help her, I know things the medical records don't contain." Elias looked up from where he sat beside Kalara's bed, his hand resting gently on her arm. "Tell me everything." Sarah's voice was soft with affection. "She loves the morning light in the crystal gardens. She hums when she's happy, old Zarathi lullabies her mother sang. She's afraid of the dark, but she'd never admit it. And she—" Sarah hesitated. "Go on." "She dreams of traveling to other worlds, meeting other species. She's not like most Zarathi nobility, she believes in cooperation, not conquest." Elias absorbed this information, then began incorporating it into his treatment. He requested mirrors to reflect morning light into the medical bay. He hummed the lullabies Sarah taught him, his deep human voice creating haunting melodies in the alien tongue. Most importantly, he spoke to Kalara about the galaxy beyond Zarathi space, about the beauty of diversity among species. "You know what I think, princess," he said during one of their one-sided conversations. "I think you'd love Earth. We have something called rain, water that falls from the sky like liquid music. And flowers that bloom in impossible colors. We're not as advanced as your people, but we have something else. We have hope." As he spoke, Kalara's brain activity increased dramatically. Her breathing deepened, and her fingers began to move more frequently. King Vorthak, who had taken to visiting every few hours, witnessed the moment that changed everything. Elias was describing a sunset over Earth's oceans when Kalara's eyes suddenly moved beneath her closed lids. Her lips parted, and she made a sound, barely a whisper, but unmistakably conscious. "What did she say?" the king demanded, rushing to her bedside. Elias leaned closer, his heart racing. "Kalara? Can you hear me?" Her hand, which had been lying still, slowly turned palm up. When Elias placed his hand in hers, her fingers closed around his with deliberate strength. "She's fighting her way back," he whispered, his voice thick with emotion. "Princess, if you can hear me, squeeze my hand. The response was immediate and strong. Kalara's grip tightened, and her breathing became more regular. For the first time in days, she looked truly peaceful rather than simply unconscious. "I don't understand," Chief Healer Vex muttered, studying the readings. "Her neural pathways are reconstructing themselves, but there's no technological catalyst." "Love," Elias said simply, never taking his eyes off Kalara's face. "Connection. The things your machines can't measure but consciousness can't exist without." That night, as Elias maintained his vigil, he found himself talking to her differently. The clinical distance he'd maintained was dissolving, replaced by something deeper. "I've spent my whole career saving lives," he admitted quietly. "But I've never felt like this about a patient. You're not just a princess to me, Kalara. You're becoming something more." In response, her eyes fluttered open for just a moment, long enough for him to see intelligence, awareness, and something that might have been recognition before they closed again. The seventh day dawned with crystalline light filtering through the palace windows. Dr. Elias Ward had barely slept, his hands still entwined with Princess Kalara's. Her breathing had grown stronger throughout the night, and her grip on his fingers had become almost possessive. "Elias." The word was barely a whisper, but it struck him like lightning. His eyes snapped open to find Kalara's silver gaze focused on his face. She was awake, truly awake, for the first time in a week. Her dark curls framed her pale purple features, and despite her weakness, she was breathtakingly beautiful. "Princess," he breathed, his voice thick with emotion. "Father." She whispered, her eyes searching the room. King Vorthak, who had been dozing in a chair nearby, leaped to his feet. "Kalara. My daughter." He rushed to her bedside, tears streaming down his face. "You're back. You're really back." "I never left," she said softly, her voice gaining strength. "I heard everything. Every word, every song, every story about rain and sunsets." Her eyes returned to Elias, and something passed between them that made the air itself seem to shimmer. Over the following days, as Kalara recovered her strength, she and Elias spent hours together. What had begun as doctor and patient evolved into something neither had expected. They walked through the crystal gardens, her arm linked through his, talking about everything and nothing. "I dreamed of your earth," she told him one evening as they sat beside a fountain that sang with harmonic crystals. "I could feel your longing for home when you described it to me. And I dreamed of you," he admitted, his hand finding hers. "Even before you woke up, I knew I was falling in love with you." Their first kiss happened under the light of twin moons, soft and tentative, then deep and passionate. Her lips were warm against his, and he could taste the exotic sweetness of her alien nature. When they broke apart, both were breathing hard. "This is madness," she whispered, but her arms remained around his neck. "The best kind," he replied, pulling her closer. Their relationship faced immediate opposition from the court. Zarathi nobility whispered about the impropriety of a princess consorting with a human. But King Vorthak, who had witnessed the miracle of his daughter's recovery, found himself reassessing his prejudices. "You love him," he said to Kalara during a private conversation. "With all my heart," she replied without hesitation. "He saved my life, father. But more than that, he saw me as more than just a princess. He saw me as a person worth fighting for." Meanwhile, Elias faced his own challenges. Chief Healer Vex cornered him in the medical bay. "You realize this relationship is impossible," Vex said coldly. "You're different species. The biological incompatibilities alone are irrelevant," Elias interrupted. "Love doesn't recognize species barriers. And besides," he smiled, "I've seen what happens when you try to reduce consciousness to mere biology. It doesn't work." That night, in the privacy of Kalara's chambers, they made love for the first time. Her skin was silk beneath his hands, electric with alien sensitivity. Every touch sent sparks through her neural pathways, and she cried out in languages that had no words for the pleasure they discovered together. I felt so lost in that darkness, she whispered afterward, her head on his chest. But your voice was like a beacon. You brought me home. We brought each other home, he corrected, stroking her dark curls. I've been wandering the galaxy for years, but I never found where I belonged until I found you. 3 months after Princess Kalara's recovery, the Zarathi royal court buzzed with unprecedented activity. The announcement had sent shockwaves through the nobility. The princess would wed the human doctor who had saved her life. It's an abomination, muttered Lord Krex, his pale purple skin flushed with indignation. A princess of the royal bloodline, marrying a primitive human. That primitive human accomplished what all our advanced medicine could not, Admiral Thex replied firmly. Perhaps it's time we reconsidered our assumptions about superiority. King Vorthak stood before the assembled court, his massive frame commanding respect. Dr. Elias Ward has proven himself worthy not just as a healer, but as a man of honor. I hereby grant him full Zarathi citizenship and the title of royal physician. The ceremony itself was a marvel of diplomatic innovation. Elias wore traditional Zarathi ceremonial robes that shimmered with embedded crystals, while Kalara's gown incorporated earth flowers, roses and jasmine that perfumed the air with their exotic scent. They exchanged vows in both languages, their words creating a bridge between worlds. By the light of our twin moons and the warmth of your distant sun, Kalara said, her voice carrying across the vast ceremonial hall, I bind my life to yours, Elias Ward of Earth. Under the stars that connect all worlds, Elias replied, his human accent making the Zarathi words sound like poetry, I pledge my heart to yours, Princess Kalara of the Zarathi Empire. When they kissed, sealing their union, the assembled crowd erupted in cheers that seemed to shake the very foundations of the palace. Even the most conservative nobles found themselves moved by the obvious love between the unlikely couple. The wedding feast lasted 3 days, with representatives from dozens of species attending. Elias found himself at the center of discussions about medical techniques, his unconventional methods suddenly the subject of intense scientific interest. You've revolutionized our understanding of consciousness, Chief Healer Vex admitted privately, his earlier hostility replaced by grudging respect. We've begun incorporating emotional therapy into our treatment protocols. The results have been remarkable. Different doesn't mean inferior, Elias replied graciously. Your technology is incredible, but it needed something else to be complete. Maybe that's what cooperation between species really means, not one being better than the other, but each contributing what the other lacks. On their wedding night, alone in chambers that overlooked the crystal gardens, Elias and Kalara reflected on the journey that had brought them together. Do you ever regret it? She asked, her head resting on his shoulder as they watched the twin moons rise. Leaving your old life behind? Never, he replied without hesitation. I spent years traveling the galaxy, thinking I was looking for new medical challenges. But I was really looking for you. For home. And now? Now I know that home isn't a place, it's a person. It's you. They made love with the passion of newlyweds and the deep connection of souls who had found each other across the vast distances of space. In the afterglow, Kalara traced patterns on his chest with her finger. The diplomatic corps wants us to visit other worlds, she said. To show that cooperation between species is possible. What do you think? I think, she said, rising to look into his eyes, that we've already proven the most important thing. That love recognizes no boundaries, not species, not protocol, not even the laws of medicine. Elias smiled, pulling her down for another kiss. Then let's show the galaxy what we've learned. Outside their window, the twin moons cast silver light across the palace grounds, illuminating a future where the impossible had become inevitable. In the medical bay, young Zarathi healers practiced the gentle touch techniques they had learned from watching the human doctor. In the diplomatic quarters, ambassadors from a dozen worlds discussed new treaties based on cooperation rather than conquest. And in the royal chambers, 2 hearts beat as one, proving that sometimes the greatest medical miracle of all is love that refuses to follow the rules.